The Poet and the Pen. Episode 4, A Mother's Heartbreak. Grace and Michael arrived in a rundown part of Vancouver, their nerves on edge. After days of dead ends, they finally had an address. As they approached the decrepit building, Michael glanced at Grace. "This has to be it," he whispered. Grace nodded, steeling herself. They knocked on the door, and after a tense moment, it creaked open to reveal a wary Daniel and a protective Evelyn. "Who are you?" Daniel's voice was sharp, eyes narrowing with suspicion. "We're your family," Grace began, but Daniel cut her off. "Family. Now you show up." His voice rose, anger and hurt evident. Tensions escalated as they argued. Evelyn tried to calm Daniel, but his sense of abandonment fueled his rage. Michael stepped forward, his tone firm yet pleading. "We know this is hard, but we need you. Kate, our sister, is very sick. She needs all of us." Daniel's resistance wavered, but he wasn't convinced. Grace's eyes filled with tears as she spoke earnestly. "Please, Daniel. We're not just asking for Kate. We're asking for all of us to heal. To be a family." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. After what felt like an eternity, Daniel's shoulders slumped. "All right," he muttered. Evelyn nodded in agreement, her eyes softening. The flight back to Ghana was tense, filled with unspoken questions and unresolved emotions. The family reunion at the airport was strained, the air thick with anxiety. Grace knew this was only the beginning of a difficult journey. Back home, Grace urged her father to tell Mrs. Ann Noel about Daniel and Evelyn. The conversation was inevitable and necessary, but Grace could see the dread in her father's eyes. One evening, as the family gathered in the living room, Mr. Noel took a deep breath and began to speak. "Ann, there's something you need to know," he started, his voice shaking. Ann's eyes widened with concern as he explained everything: Daniel, Evelyn, the past he had hidden for so long. Ann's face went pale, shock and betrayal etched into her features. "How could you?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The room fell silent, the tension unbearable. Unable to cope, Ann packed a bag and left the house that night. She needed time to process the betrayal. Grace watched her mother leave, her heart breaking. Despite her own pain, Ann visited Kate daily in the hospital, her heartbreak evident in her eyes. With Ann gone, the family's emotional state was in turmoil. Daniel and Evelyn felt like outsiders, and the strain on Grace and Michael grew. The company's profits continued to plummet, shareholders voicing their concerns more vocally. Grace and Michael were stretched thin, trying to hold everything together. The weight of the secrets, the illness, and the crumbling company pressed down on them. Grace knew they were on the brink of collapse, and she feared they wouldn't be able to pull through. The stage was set for a battle on all fronts: personal, familial, and professional. Grace's resolve hardened. She had to find a way to bring her family together, save Kate, and stabilize the company. But with each passing day, the odds seemed increasingly stacked against her. Like and follow as we continue with the story of Rhythms of Life in The Poet and the Pen.